LG's latest flagship device, the LG G7 Thinq, spelled Thinq, is finally here, and that means that, as is usual on this channel, it's time to do a complete walkthrough. Now, if you're not familiar, a complete walkthrough is a video that I do here on the channel and on my site that I try to go through every single feature on a device that I possibly can, just so that you guys are better informed of what it can and can't do in case you decide you want to go out and buy one. Now, with that said, there is obviously a lot to cover, so let's get started with the hardware. The LG G7 has an aluminum frame with Gorilla Glass 5 on the front and the back. It comes in 4 colors: platinum gray, aurora black, Moroccan blue, and raspberry rose. The screen is 6.1 inches. It's a QHD plus 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio LCD that is supposedly capable of 1,000 nits of brightness and is also HDR10 compliant, as most devices are nowadays, by the way. And yes, there is a notch. Thankfully though, for anyone who minds the notch, you can go into the display settings, tap on second screen. I'm not sure how it's a second screen and not just the notification bar, but okay. And you can customize it to either hide the notch by making it all black, using a gradient color scheme, or even accentuate it if you wanted with a multicolored one. You can also control the edges of apps that display to curve down a bit more or less. Now in that notch, we have an 8 megapixel f1.9 aperture 80-degree field of view camera. At the bottom of the front, we have nothing but our small bezel. On the left, we have our volume buttons and our dedicated Google Assistant button. Now you can tap on the Google Assistant button to, of course, bring up Google Assistant, but you can also hold down on the button to use Google Assistant in like a walkie-talkie mode. In this, she only listens when you are holding it down and stops when you let go, something that is very helpful in noisy environments to help her distinguish your voice from the background noise. Now you can also double tap the button to open Google Lens, which is Google's AI-assisted camera app that helps you identify landmarks, helps you shop, etc. Now on the right of the LG G7, we have the power button. On the top, we have the SIM card and micro SD card slot combo. At the bottom, we have our USB-C port, our boombox speaker, as LG calls it, which utilizes a chamber in the device to amplify the bass, and a 3.5mm headphone jack that has a hi-fi quad DAC for higher quality audio when plugged into a headset. In addition to the DAC, LG says the G7 is the first device to support DTS-X, which can deliver virtual 3D sound up to 7.1 channels when a headset is plugged in or when connected to an external speaker. And Bluetooth headset users will be pleased to know that it also supports Qualcomm's aptX HD for higher quality Bluetooth audio streaming over Bluetooth 5.0. Into the device, we have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 processor paired with 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of storage. On the back of the device, we have our center-mounted fingerprint scanner that, unlike previous models, does not double as a power button. You can also unlock the device with your face and even your voice by saying a 2 to 3 word phrase of your choosing. To help the G7 with hearing your voice, it also supports super far field voice recognition and can supposedly recognize Google Assistant commands from up to 16 feet away with background noise present. Also on the back of the LG G7 Thinq, we have our dual 16 megapixel cameras. One of these has a more standard field of view of 71 degrees and an aperture of f1.6, and the other is our wider camera that we're used to seeing on LG phones now with an aperture of f1.9 and a field of view of 107 degrees. You can switch between the cameras as usual using the icons at the top of the viewfinder. Now the autofocus on the camera is super fast during my initial messing with the device. It also has optical stabilization, thankfully, and a super bright mode, they call it. The super bright mode utilizes pixel binning, or the combining of multiple pixels into a 1 pixel sensor to allow more light, but reduce the resolution of the image. Now, in messing with it, I found it cuts the resolution down from 16 megapixels to 4 megapixels, meaning that it is combining 4 pixels together to make each pixel for the super bright mode image. LG also added their own AI scene detection, part of that Thinq in the name of the device. It can detect 19 scenes and will automatically adjust the camera settings, like exposure, saturation, etc., depending on what it thinks is in the shot. It has a novel and fun way of identifying the object by showing you some of the things it's thinking about on the screen in the form of words that fade in and out, but isn't quite as fast as other iterations of this AI scene detection that we've seen. The nice thing about this is that you have to actually tap on the AI camera for it to turn on. It's disabled by default. LG has added portrait mode to the G7 as well, and you can tap portrait mode to enable it, and then it'll detect the subject and blur the background. You can also adjust the amount of blur with the slider that appears during this mode. Google Lens, which again is Google Assistant's camera app, is also available from within the camera as a shortcut near the shutter. Now let's go through all of the camera settings besides the usual auto mode. Filters. You can either add filter effects to the entire shot, think like Instagram, or facial tracking stickers, think like Snapchat. Manual photo. This allows you to control things like exposure, ISO, etc. manually on the screen for your photos. Manual video. This allows you to control things like exposure, ISO, etc. manually on the screen for video. Cinevideo. This mode we first saw in the V30 and it essentially records video with a certain color setting that you can then use different looks, which are using LUTs or lookup tables, after the fact or during by tapping the film icon on the left when editing to completely change the video's color grading, etc. Then we have food, which basically just ups the saturation for food shots, but also provides a slider for color temperature. You can go cooler or warmer. Slow-mo, which records at 240 frames per second, that you can then play back as slow motion, and you can adjust as well. Panorama, this we're used to seeing on cameras nowadays, but it allows you to take a photo and then move the camera left or right to have it stitch them all together to get a wider panorama shot. Flash jump cut. Now this makes a GIF. It'll either take 4, 8, 12, 16, or 20 shots, one every 3 seconds, and then stitch them together automatically for you in order to create a GIF file. Now, let's go through the settings on the camera really fast. Super bright camera. You can turn this off, auto, or manual. Auto will enable the mode whenever it decides that it is dark enough to need it, and manual will pop up a button whenever it thinks it's dark enough to need it, but you have to tap on that button to actually turn it on. HDR is high dynamic range. You can set it to on, off, or auto. This is just for photos, by the way. It's not the same as HDR10, which we'll get to in a bit. Steady recording. This turns on electronic stabilization to help with motion blur in videos, and it doesn't work on 4K, just so you know. Live photo. This is basically the same as live photos on iPhone. It records a bit of video before and after you take a photo that you can then play back in the gallery app. Cheese shutter. This lets you say cheese, smile, whiskey, kimchi, or LG to take a photo. Tag locations. This adds location metadata to your photos. Grid turns on a rule of thirds grid. Add signature, which allows you to add a small piece of text in any of the installed fonts on the device to the bottom right corner of every photo to watermark them. And now if you change modes, you get additional options specific to each of these modes in the settings section. So if you select manual photo settings, you also get options for Graphi photos. Now Graphi is an app that allows people to save camera settings as presets that you can then apply to your own photos. You can turn this off or on in the settings when you have the phone set to manual photos. But then to use them, you can tap on the Graphi icon at the top right of the screen whenever you're taking the photo on manual, then choose a preset or tap the download icon to get more from the Graphi app on the Play Store. Then we also have Save as RAW. Now this lets you save the photo as a JPEG and a DNG RAW file for more professional editing if you wanted after the fact. Now if you select manual video mode and you go to settings, you'll have frame rate, which lets you set the frame rate for the video to 1, 2, 24, 30, or 60 frames per second. Note that if you select 4K for your resolution though, 60 frames per second is not available. Bitrate. This is the data rate for the recording. Higher is better quality, but with larger file size. Hi-Fi, which allows you to record higher bitrate audio with the video. Again, it sounds better, but will make the file size larger. Save as HDR10 is the last option we have here, and you can basically use this to record in high dynamic range for video. Now without getting too technical, it's the ability to record a lot more contrast, colors, and shades of those colors. If 4K is higher resolution than 1080p, for example, and everything is sharper, then this is the equivalent of that for better colors, if that makes sense. And that's it for the camera. Expect camera comparisons coming ASAP. Now, for the G7's software. Now, the device is running Android 8.0 with LG's skin on top of it. Now, it probably doesn't make sense for me to go through every single thing on LG's UI, and it's the same as it is for most other phones. So, really quick, I'm just gonna go through the non-standard apps that LG has pre-installed on the device. Now, keep in mind that this is an unbranded carrier-free model, so expect carrier bloatware in addition to these if you buy one from a carrier. Now, real fast. Quick Memo Plus, which is LG's note-taking app, Music, which is LG's music player with a built-in equalizer, LG Health, which is LG's version of Google Fit. It records steps, has automatic activity tracking, weight recording, a ranking system, route tracking, etc. HD Audio Recorder, which is a sound recording app that takes advantage of the specialized microphones in the device. Update Center, which is LG's custom app to check for app updates and system updates. Smart Cleaning, an app that lets you clear out caches, free up storage, RAM, test hardware for faults, check battery usage, etc. LG Mobile Switch, which is an app that lets you transfer messages, photos, home screen settings, etc. from an old device to a new one via either USB cable, wireless connection, or a micro SD card. LG Smart World. Now this is LG's own app store and news center. It allows you to do some interesting things that the actual Play Store can't, like download themes for the LG home screen, fonts for the system, hi-fi audio, etc. There you go, guys, a complete walkthrough as fast as I could of everything that the LG G7 has on it, can do, the camera, all that fun stuff. I kind of switched the format up a little bit. I did the camera before I did all the software because you guys are kind of like, the software, I don't care as much. I also shortened that as well, so hopefully that was helpful. Let me know what you guys think of this video of the G7. I think it's kind of cool so far, but let me know in the comments below. Always love to hear from you guys. If you're not already, please subscribe, and also don't forget to check the bell next to the word subscribe so you get notified when I do new videos. Otherwise, thumbs up the video if you liked it, leave a comment, all that fun stuff. I really appreciate all of it. Now, as always though, regardless, thanks for watching.